The Greens will join the coalition in voting against the government's misinformation bill and blocking it in the Senate. The Greens say the legislation does not tackle mass distribution of false and harmful information, but rather damage democracy and censor free speech. The party wants tougher implications for tech giants included in the bill. Greens Senator Sarah Hanson-Young believes without their support, the bill has no future.
I urge the government to withdraw it. Get it off the notice paper, withdraw the bill, accept that you've stuffed this one up and you're going to have to go back to the drawing board.
Joining me live is Hawker Britain co-founder Bruce Hawker. Great to see you. Yes, a very
Hey, Jenny.
Controversial one, this particular bill. Some people are absolutely adamant to not pass it and others are, especially with the Coalition and Greens joining forces.
Yes, it's a bit of an unholy alliance between the two parties, and we've seen that happen in the past. For example, when Kevin Rudd wanted to put his his carbon trading bill through, that was knocked back because the Greens wanted more, the Coalition wanted less. This sort of happens from time to time, and it's worth looking at that and why. I think, though, that there is a large sort of sense of frustration in the community about the amount of very dangerous misinformation and sometimes disinformation that is allowed onto their social media feeds. We're getting it all the time, aren't we? You know, you see something allegedly from MyGov saying that you're about to get a tax benefit as long as you just press this button, you know, and people fall for it and they end up losing thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. It's a huge impost. So how do you deal with these problems? You know, the Greens may have a legitimate concern there that it might go too far in places, but where do you actually start with something like this? And I think the government's response has been to say, well, we're going to work out all the detail over the next 12 months in consultation with those platforms. I think there is a desire to see it happen generally in the Australian public, but a concern also that we don't go too far and constrain freedom of expression.
It is really tough, isn't it? It's a big question. I mean, you look at the E-Safety Commissioner trying to order X from the Wakely terror photos and images that were online and that got rejected. And then, you know, you've got to look at the definition, I guess. What is misinformation? What is disinformation? And then misinterpretation as well. I mean, I might say something, you might misinterpret what I say as something completely different. And yeah, again, it's very tricky.
It's an area it's very hard to sort of get your hands on and say, yes, this is how we do it. I think that's why the government wants 12 months to go through those consultations with the platforms. I think those big platforms are also looking at Australia from overseas, particularly the United States, to see what precedents might be established. Peter Dutton in the past has supported stronger regulatory moves in this place. He's not supporting them now. You have to ask why. With an election coming up, he probably doesn't want to see the government getting too much momentum around anything. But it is another example of where social media has gone down paths which really a lot of Australians, most Australians, I think, are very uncomfortable with.
On that, with the social media laws limiting the age to 16, what are your thoughts on this? Again, another divisive conversation. Yeah,
indeed. And of course, you know, you've lost the under 16 vote immediately.
Well, not necessarily. Some people are not, you know, they don't mind it.
Well, that's good. I mean, I think parents want to see much more controls. And this is another one where emotionally people's responses are to say, well, look, our kids are spending far too much time on phones and social media. Some of it is very dangerous and damaging, and we do need to have some constraints and controls put in place. I think the public wants something to happen. It's happening in New South Wales and South Australia. And again, the rest of the world's looking at these things. Although, having just come back from the United States, when you talk to people about controlling social media there, they say, oh, they should litigate it, you know. So, and that's the alternative, you know. We all go out and sue one another to try to get some sort of justice.
And again, it's defining what is social media again, isn't it? It's looking at the nitty-gritty of it all. And we had Kids Helpline on yesterday. And of course, you know, platforms like that are certainly very much respected and needed for so many people. And you do talk to younger people and they use social media as their connection and they're well aware of scams and, you know, perhaps more than what we would be, but I'll speak on my own behalf here. But yeah, so again, it's that whole definition of what social media is and the implications and the ins and outs.
That's exactly right. And a lot of those groups who do really good things through social media are saying, well, just be careful here that we're not cutting children off from lines of support that they might not otherwise be able to get.
Yeah. What about the university student restrictions as well? Coalition and Greens yet again joining forces.
Again, and once again, previously Peter Dutton has said we do need to reduce the number of students coming into Australia in order to assist the housing crisis, and so we're seeing this coalition of the right and the extreme left and the Green Party coming together for different reasons to try to block it. But I think, again, there is an appetite in the public to try to restrict the amount of immigration, whether it be short-term or longer-term, into Australia because of the pressures that are currently being felt by people just to rent and buy homes of their own. So it's another one that needs to be looked at. You need to have certain levers which you can pull in order to slow down entry into Australia at various times. And student visas is one of them. Again, I think there would be support for the proposition. I think there's also support more broadly for lowering the amount of immigration generally into Australia at the moment. That has its downsides as well. These are the people who are filling up a lot of jobs that we need to have filled in Australia. We have got full employment at the moment. So none of this comes without big challenges. But I think the big question is, are these measures being blocked in the Senate for good policy reasons, or is it really just to try to give the impression that the Labor government's doing nothing, when in fact they've got a lot of things in the pipeline, they're just being held up?
Yeah, interesting point. Before we let you go, do you think we'll have an early election?
Look, I doubt it. I think we're looking at something around May. And of course, now we're hearing again that interest rates may not be brought down for until later in the year, which is appalling, really. I mean, the Reserve Bank really has to have a look at the household incomes of people out there and ask themselves, are they doing anyone any favours by holding off? They're the ones who are stopping it now. It's the Reserve Bank. It's on their head. In the past, they've got these things horribly wrong in predicting that they wouldn't have to raise interest rates until 2024. I mean, they've got a lot of economists there, but they don't seem to be able to work out that people are doing it tough out there.
Yeah, they sure are. Great to see you. Thank you so much, Bruce.
Thanks, Jenny.